Hey, Coach, I guess now that you're able to comment officially, what kind of player are you getting in Layden Blocker? What are some things that jump out to you about his game?
What a lot of things jump out about Layden. I think number one is uh, his great speed and quickness. Transition game, the way that we want to play. He possesses all that. He's got great toughness, which the toughness is a big part of our DNA. He's an excellent defender. Can score the ball at the point guard position. But just we love his toughness, love um, his his love of the game and his want to improve. He's really thirsty to gain knowledge about the game. Not normal conversations with him. Oftentimes, he's trying to get an edge. He's very focused on where he wants his career to go. Comes from a great family, so we're really, really excited about Layden. And maybe the most positive thing is he keeps getting better. Some guys plateau, and he's a guy that continues to be on the rise, which is really important going into his senior year, and then obviously will be extremely important playing for us, a year from now.
And what have you made of South Dakota State so far? It seems like a pretty battle-tested team on the road already, maybe an underrated win at Boise the other night.
Well, yeah, and I think there's unique perspective, at least from my chair, because Akron and their staff and Coach Groschi and I, we're John and I talked, we're friends, and then you add in the fact that Coach Rice and Boise State, we have incredible respect for what Boise State, and I know how tough it is to win in that building because we had to try to do it for 4 years, and this is South Dakota State's not a well-coached team. They're an excellent coached basketball team. They have a lot of skilled position players. You're talking about one of the top 2 most efficient offenses last year in the entire country. You're talking about great shooting at the 1, 2, and the 3 spot. 34 Arians can he's a lefty. He's got great toughness. He can make open threes. He's got a pull-up game off the bounce mid-range. Mayo, number 2, a primary scorer, can create his own shot, has great range. He's got deep range. Easily number 30 at the small forward spot, can really shoot the ball. Kyle, number 42, is an excellent freshman. A high-level player. Their staff did a great job of recruiting a player that can be put in a starting lineup and produce early in his career. And then 32, Detlinger is a guy that is off to a great start the first 2 basketball games for them. He was part of the rotation last year, who's now elevated his game as opportunity. And then off the bench, they got 2 really good shooters in number 1, Mims, and number 15. Those guys can really shoot the ball. And then Apple, we're assuming is coming back or close to coming back. Number 13, who's will be one of their best returning players, who has not played in the first 2 games, but it would be anticipated that he would play in our game Wednesday. And then number 11, Moores, plays extremely hard as well at that forward spot for South Dakota State.
Bob?
Hey, Eric, how you doing?
Good,
Just wondering, has Nick been able to practice with you guys at all, or what's his status for this game?
Yeah, Nick has not. Yep, Nick has not practiced. He's doing some stuff on his own, shooting, rehabbing with with the trainer.
So would you anticipate he's out for this game again, or what would you say about that?
Well, yeah, he hasn't practiced, Bob. So we're just going to stick to going day by day, and but he has not practiced with us, and he continues to slowly but surely improve, and each day that goes by gets closer to rejoining us in practice, but is not there as of today.
How would you say you guys have handled not having him? Because obviously he's a great player, and you guys have had two pretty good wins, it looks like. Guys, how do you think y'all have handled that, and maybe what adjustments have you had to make without him?
We had to make a lot of adjustments without Nick because we spent a good portion of our off season developing play packages and roles around him. But I think guys have done an incredible job of, the guys have created an identity through 2 games, a defensive identity, scheme wise, especially defensively. I think that, we're ahead of maybe where we thought we would be defensively, and got to continue to get better from an offensive standpoint. But, we miss Nick for sure, especially offensively, and perimeter shooting. But guys have stepped into different roles. We kind of even saw it develop as the game unfolded in game 2. We did not go into that game thinking that Ricky Council would be handling the ball in middle pick and roll, but that's what the game called for, and that was an adjustment based on how Fordham was defending us. And so, we continue to tinker and add different wrinkles to our sets as we see different defenses, and that'll probably develop all the way, through the first half of our first 15 games. We'll probably still being a group that's tinkering and trying to anticipate what we can see both defensively and offensively.
And then South Dakota State, they're playing St. Bonaventure Tuesday night, and I guess they're traveling here Wednesday. They must have really wanted to play you guys. Kind of, what do you think about that, and kind of how'd that come together?
Yeah, no, I think that, South Dakota State, you're talking about a team that won 30 games last year. There's not a lot of people that want to play them. It's hard for us right now to schedule games, and it's hard for South Dakota State to schedule games. And so the dates worked out really well for us. And like last year we saw, Hofstra fly into Little Rock the day of the game. And they didn't charter. We're anticipating South Dakota State will charter and get in the night before the game, but it didn't really affect Hofstra too much, because that was probably, a game that we felt they were as ready to play against us as anybody that we played all last season. So, with the shooting that South Dakota State has, if we don't play great, 3-point defense, and they're a much underrated post-up team, they're going to throw the ball inside to 32 Detlinger, and they're going to throw it into 42 Kyle. So, you got 2 dilemmas. You got to guard the 3, and you also have to guard them at the 4-5 spot, interior post defense wise as well.
Okay, I might have a couple more, but I'll turn it back to Mike. Thanks, Eric.
Thanks, Bob.
Scotty?
Yeah, Eric, I'm just curious if you could expound maybe on what you saw with Ricky handling the ball. I know we talked about it plenty already, but he had 7 assists, but the first 6 went to a different guy. So I guess he pretty much got everybody involved at some point in the game.
Well, we really liked how Ricky read the defense. He knew where his other 4 outlets were. I thought that, especially on the fly, adding 2 guys to the dunker spot, and then having a guy set a pick and roll, your spacing's a little bit unique, to say the least. We did a good job of short rolling and then being playmakers out of that. And then I thought the one guy that we kept in either corner did a good job of staying disciplined and not creeping in. But Ricky is a guy that can get to the rim. He can make mid-range shots. He's a really, really good mid-range shooter. And so I thought he did a great job. 7 assists, a lot of assists, for anybody, but especially unique for somebody that maybe is wired to be, a scorer. Look, Mike would have to tell us. I'm assuming that's his career high from assists as well.
And your guys seemed pretty in tune with each other the other night, at least defensively, diving for loose balls, covering for each other. Is that kind of an early sign that there's some chemistry forming with this group?
I think there's some really good chemistry. It's interesting whether I talk to Mike Lombardi, a former NFL executive, or I talk to Phil Nevin, who's obviously a manager for the Angel. Some of these guys are not they're not basketball experts, but the big thing I like, hey, you see a theme or identity that our guys are playing with. And I think the last 2 years, when I've asked people that are not necessarily only watching Arkansas, or maybe they're not in the building and they're watching via TV, I think toughness, getting to loose balls, defending for 40 minutes, those are some of the themes that we've heard the last 2 years, and maybe a little bit earlier than prior years. We're starting to hear those descriptions of our team, which is a good sign. And then, hey, we still got a lot of areas we got to get better at. And South Dakota State, they exposed every defense. I mentioned Leon Rice and how well coached Boise State is. And quite frankly, South Dakota State exposed Boise State's defense in a lot of areas. And when you have such a proficient offensive system, that players that really, really fit your offensive style and scheme, like South Dakota State, we just hope that we're not exposed in areas that maybe they exposed Akron as well as Boise at different spots, during their game.
Hutch.
Yeah, Coach, you mentioned that there's several things y'all got to improve on still. I wonder if there's maybe one or two things at the forefront of your mind as you go into this South Dakota State game before you have the big Maui Invitational next week.
Yeah, I think I think we're sharing the ball, but our passing numbers right now have been right around that 150 to 170. So we're about 30 passes to 45 passes short of what the teams were the last 2 years towards the second half of the last 2 years. So we still have time to improve on different people touching the ball. I think that our centers have enough speed that they can get more rim layups or paint dunks in transition. Would like to try to play with a little bit more pace offensively. I think that we walk the ball up the floor times a little bit more than maybe what we would like. And then, like every team in the country, offensive execution can certainly improve, but I think there's probably 300 plus teams that would say that about themselves offensively. And especially when you're talking about, 11 new players, there's going to be, some uncertainty on still gathering where guys like the ball, spacing, go-to plays, late game, need a basket play. All those are still going to develop, not just on Wednesday. I mean, that's going to be a process well into, probably all the way into, late November or excuse me, I should say late December, early January.
And you mentioned Jalen Graham after the last game, how he seemed to make a lot of the minutes he got. How did you think he handled, not playing in the first game and going forward? I mean, because this is a guy that had been a really good player over in the Pac-12.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's so much that goes into making decisions on who plays, matchups, how the week of practice is going. There's a lot of stuff that goes into, decision making behind closed doors. And I thought Jalen had a great week of practice, a better week of practice than maybe what he had shown. Yesterday was a great sign. There was 3 guys that stayed deep past practice yesterday. He was one of them. We had maybe not seen that, the last month or so, but last week, great practice. Yesterday, stayed, worked on his game, because he is a guy that can really, really score the ball. If anybody tries to play him straight up one-on-one in the post, he's going to get a good look at the basket because of his quickness and and his ability to feel the defense and spin away from help.
Andrew?
Yeah, coach, Trevin Brazil's been coming off the bench for you, but obviously he's going to play a ton of minutes for you. When you're evaluating those other big men, how important is it for them to mesh well with him offensively and on both ends of the floor, really?
Yeah, I mean, I think with TB, it's interesting. In practice, he plays a lot of small forward for us. In the games, he's prominent, basically played probably about 97% of the time at the power forward spot. We'd eventually like to get him, a few minutes at the small forward spot as we go against some teams that have a little bit more size. But he plays starter minutes. I think every player would like to start. But what I do know that every player over wanting to start is how do I play 30 plus minutes? And, he's playing starter minutes and some, just like JD Notae did, the year before. I mean, historically, I've loved to be able to look down at our bench and know that I have a starter sitting there who's going to eventually play 30 plus minutes. I think that, if things don't go well to start a game, I love the fact that you can look down at your bench and put a guy in that can change the complexion of the game. And he's not the only guy. There's probably a few other guys that give an opportunity, and that'll happen during the course of the year, that they'll be able to come in and help as well.
And also just with a young team, you're coming off of a performance where you played so well defensively and had so much effort. How hard is it to kind of get your guys to not take their foot off the gas and keep that same effort going forward?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And that only time will tell, because we've only played 2 games. We played a midweek game, or I should say an early week game. And then we had a great crowd, on a Friday night. We have another, a midweek game on Wednesday. It's the last time that our fans will be able to see us before we go to Maui. But that's what really good teams and really mature teams do is you play with the same effort and the same focus every single night. And I know from our coaching staff, like South Dakota State, or they're going to win 20 to 25 to 30. Like, that's just what they do. And so we've got to have incredible respect for them coming in here and incredible respect for how good they are offensively. And so you need that same type of effort, and it doesn't happen 30 nights. Last year, we didn't play with that effort in Little Rock. And we saw the results. If you don't play with incredible effort, you're going to get the results we got last year when Hofstra beat us, so we've got to have great effort with as many nights as we possibly can over a 30 game regular season sample size.
Mason, you still have a question?
Yeah, Coach, I just wanted to ask about the other night. Anthony Black had 6 threes. I was curious if going into that game, if you were planning on him shooting all those, or if that was just what the defense was throwing at y'all during the game.
Yeah, that's an easy question. That's what the defense threw at us. They elected to live with perimeter shots, with our centers, with Anthony, with Jordan. So I think there was, to some degree with Devo. So there was, 4 or 5, sometimes 4 players on the court that Fordham elected to give space to shoot. And so with all of our guys, when open, please take the shot. And so you always want players to play with great confidence offensively. And maybe most importantly, you got to read what the defense does to you. And then you've got to take advantage of what they are showing you.
Bob, final question?
Yeah, Eric, I know you guys know you're ranked 9th in the AP poll because I saw you tweet a big graphic of it. And the Hog Stats, he knows everything. He tweeted or something that this will be the highest ranking Arkansas's had in a home game. I think going back to 95. I just wondered what your thoughts are on that.
Hopefully our crowd will represent, that enthusiasm that the poll had. I mean, for us, in all honesty, like our whole thing is how do we get better? The rankings are, they're not that important in all reality. Danielle was awesome this morning because she's like, I can't wait to see the polls and see how wrong they are, because she watches games with me every night. She'll watch for 5 minutes and say, how is that team ranked? Or how is this team not ranked? Or so I don't know how you judge or evaluate 350 plus college programs in 2 games. To me, it's really hard. And again, I get that it's part of the landscape, but we got to get better in a lot of areas.
And speaking of polio, Tennessee got upset. Villanova did. Arizona State got. I think Johnny Jones guys got Arizona State. There's
Johnny Jones did. I watched that whole game. ESPN Plus.
I don't know why people schedule it because but there's.
Hey, we're not scheduling Johnny Jones. I can tell you that.
There's more than a handful of Power 5 teams, or a team like Villanova, which I consider Big East like a Power 6, I guess. Whatever. A lot of highly regarded, named teams that be getting knocked off. What do you think about that? And is that something you talk to your guys about? Like, hey, we don't want to be the next team that happens to.
Yeah, we were one of those teams last year. Look, the way that college athletics is in basketball, baseball, football, anybody can beat anybody. We see it on a daily basis, and the transfer stuff has changed things dramatically. I look at South Dakota State's team and look at the pieces that they have back, whether it's number 13 Apple, whether it's 32 Detlinger, whether it's 34 Arians, whether it's 2 Mayo. Like, these guys played on a 30-win team. They know how to win. They know how to win on the road. We got 6 freshmen and 11 new players. So we have to play at a high level or you don't win games like this. It just doesn't happen. And we scheduled South Dakota State because we believe that they can win their conference.
Okay, is there anything else you want? I'm a poll voter. I work really hard every Sunday night to put it together.
Bob, you do a great job. I mean,
if Danielle has any advice, tell her shoot me. Text.
Bob, that was not. Trust me, that was nothing against your votes, man.
I need all the help I can get, man. It's a chore.
Thanks,
Okay,
Doug.
thanks.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks.